Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiance, staring at the stars through the main viewing window. His ship had been traveling through space for 3 weeks now, heading toward the Outer Rim colonies on a routine supply mission. The journey was supposed to be boring and peaceful, just the way Jake liked it, but peaceful trips never lasted long in space. The communication officer, Lieutenant Danny Walsh, suddenly turned around in his chair. His face was pale and worried. "Captain, we're getting a distress signal." Jake walked over to Danny's station. "Where's it coming from?" "New Denver colony, sir. On Kepler 442b. Danny's fingers moved quickly over his controls. "But this is strange. The signal is 3 months old." Jake felt his stomach drop. New Denver was home to 50,000 people. It was one of the biggest mining colonies on the Outer Rim. If they were sending distress signals 3 months ago, why hadn't anyone heard about it until now? "Put it through the speakers," Jake ordered. The bridge filled with static. Then a woman's voice came through, crackling and broken. "This is Colony Administrator Lisa Carter of New Denver. We are under attack. Unknown alien ships have surrounded our planet. They refuse to talk to us. They just keep shooting. Our defenses are failing. If anyone receives this message, please send help. Please don't let them destroy us all." The message cut off into silence. Jake looked around at his crew. Every face showed the same shock and fear he was feeling. In all the years humans had been traveling through space, they had met many alien species. Some were friendly, some were not interested in talking, but none had ever attacked human colonies without reason. "Set course for New Denver," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir, that's 3 days away at full power," said his navigation officer, Lieutenant Sarah Williams. "Then we better get moving." The next 3 days felt like 3 years. Jake barely slept. He kept thinking about the 50,000 people living on New Denver. Were they still alive? What kind of aliens would attack innocent colonists? Dr. Amanda Foster, the ship's science officer, spent hours going through every record of alien contact they had. She was a small woman with short brown hair and tired eyes. "I can't find anything like this, Captain," she told Jake on the second day. "No alien species has ever shown this kind of aggression toward humans." "Maybe we just haven't met them before," Jake replied. "That's what I'm afraid of." When the Defiance finally arrived at the Kepler 442b system, Jake felt his heart sink. The planet that should have been glowing with city lights was mostly dark. Only a few small spots of light could be seen from space. "Take us down to the main colony site," Jake ordered. As their ship descended through the atmosphere, the true horror became clear. New Denver had been a beautiful city built into the side of a mountain. Now half of it was nothing but smoking ruins. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were torn up, and burn marks covered everything. Jake led a team down to the surface. The air smelled like smoke and death. They walked through empty streets, calling out for survivors. For hours, they found nothing but destruction. Then they heard voices coming from underground. "Down here." Jake shouted toward a broken building. "We're from Earth Defense. We're here to help." A section of rubble moved, and people began climbing out of what looked like a hidden bunker. They were dirty, tired, and scared, but they were alive. The first person to emerge was a tall woman with gray hair and determined eyes. "I'm Lisa Carter," she said. "Thank God someone finally came." Behind her came more survivors. Men, women, children, all looking like they hadn't seen sunlight in months. Jake counted about 200 people, but he knew there should have been thousands more. "How many survivors?" Jake asked quietly. Lisa's face became grim. "About 3,000, scattered in bunkers across the colony. That's all that's left." Jake felt sick. 47,000 people had died here. What happened? Dr. Foster asked as she examined the survivors for injuries. Lisa looked at the ruins of her city. They came without warning. Big ships, bigger than anything we'd ever seen. They didn't try to communicate at first. They just started shooting. An older man stepped forward. He was covered in grease and had the rough hands of someone who worked with machines. I'm Ben Rodriguez, Chief Engineer. I managed to record some of their transmissions before our communications went down. Ben led them to a damaged building that had once been the colony's command center. Inside, he activated a partially working computer system. Static filled the air, then alien voices began speaking. Dr. Foster worked quickly to run the sounds through. Their translation programs. After a few minutes, words began to appear on the screen. Attention, inferior species. You have contaminated this sector with your presence. Your kind is weak and disgusting. We will cleanse this area of your filth. Resistance is useless. Prepare for extinction. The recording continued, but it was just more of the same. The aliens called humans animals, pests, and worse things. They talked about destroying human colonies like it was some kind of game. They call themselves the Vector, Ben explained. From what we could understand, they've been doing this to other human colonies too. We're not the first. Jake felt anger building in his chest. How many other colonies? We don't know. But from their communications, it sounds like they've hit at least a dozen worlds in the past year. Dr. Foster was studying the alien technology scattered around the battlefield. She picked up a strange weapon that looked like it was made from some kind of living metal. This is incredibly advanced, she said. Their technology is far beyond ours, but they're not invincible, Lisa said firmly. We managed to damage some of their smaller ships before our defenses failed. They bleed just like anything else. Jake activated his communication system to contact Earth. The message would take weeks to reach home, but Earth Command needed to know what was happening. This is Captain Morrison of the U East Defiance. New Denver colony has been destroyed by hostile aliens calling themselves the Vector. Massive casualties. Request immediate military support and evacuation ships for survivors. He paused, then added, based on survivor reports, this appears to be part of a larger campaign against human colonies. Recommend raising defense condition to maximum alert. As Jake finished his message, Ben Rodriguez approached with a worried expression. Captain, there's something else you need to know. Before our long-range sensors were destroyed, we detected the Vector fleet moving toward the inner colonies. Which colonies? Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Alpha Centauri Prime, sir. Over 2 million people live there. Jake stared at the ruins of New Denver and imagined the same destruction happening to Alpha Centauri. 2 million. Innocent people, including families, children, elderly colonists who had never hurt anyone. The Vector had made a mistake. They thought humans were just another weak species they could destroy for fun. They didn't understand what they had just started. How long until they reach Alpha Centauri? Jake demanded, then checked his calculations. At their current speed, maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks to save 2 million people. 2 weeks to stop these aliens from continuing their genocide. 2 weeks to show the Vector that they had picked the wrong species to mess with. Jake looked around at his crew and the survivors of New Denver. These people had lost everything, but they were still standing. They were still fighting. That was what it meant to be human. We're going to stop them, Jake announced. His voice was quiet but filled with determination. All of them. The Vector thought humans were weak animals that could be easily exterminated. They were about to learn why that was the biggest mistake they could ever make. The U's Defiance moved through space like a hunting wolf, silent and deadly. Captain Jake Morrison stood in his command chair, watching the stars pass by on the main screen. 3 days had passed since they left the ruins of New Denver, and every hour counted. The Vector fleet was getting closer to Alpha Centauri Prime. Commander Ryan Brooks walked up to Jake with a serious look on his face. Ryan was Jake's second in command and best friend. They had served together for 10 years, and Jake trusted him more than anyone else in the galaxy. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates where the survivors said they last saw the Vector fleet," Ryan reported. "Our sensors are picking up something big about 2 hours ahead." Jake nodded. "Good. Time to see what we're really dealing with." Dr. Amanda Foster looked up from her science station. She had been working non-stop since they left New Denver, studying the alien weapons and technology they had collected. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her mind was sharp as ever. "Captain, I've made some discoveries about the Vector technology," she said. "You're not going to like what I found." Jake walked over to her station. "Tell me." Amanda pulled up a holographic display showing the alien weapons. "Their energy output is incredible. One of their smallest guns has more power than our main ship cannons. Their armor can absorb almost any kind of damage we can throw at it." "Almost any kind?" Ryan asked, catching the important word. "That's where it gets interesting," Amanda continued. "I ran biological scans on the blood samples we found at New Denver. The Vector are physically superior to humans in every way. Stronger, faster, tougher. But they have one weakness." She changed the display to show alien brain scans. Their nervous systems are incredibly sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. The same kind of frequencies our communication systems use every day. Jake studied the information. "You're saying we can hurt them with our radios?" "More than hurt them. The right frequency could completely shut down their nervous systems. The problem is getting close enough to use it." Before Jake could respond, Lieutenant Danny Walsh called out from his communication station. "Captain, I'm picking up massive energy signatures ahead. Multiple ships, all moving in formation." "Red alert," Jake ordered. "All hands to battle stations." The bridge lights dimmed to red as the crew prepared for possible combat. Jake felt his heart beating faster. This would be their first look at the enemy that had destroyed New Denver. "Take us in slowly," Jake commanded. "Activate stealth systems. I want to see them before they see us." The Defiance crept forward through space, its advanced stealth technology making it nearly invisible to most sensors. As they got closer, the main screen showed what they were hunting. The Vector fleet was massive. 12 ships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. The smallest ship was twice the size of the Defiance. The largest ship in the center of the formation was like a floating city, covered with weapons and armor. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Sarah Williams from the navigation station. "How are we supposed to fight that?" But Chief Petty Officer Kate Sullivan was studying the alien formation with different eyes. Kate had been a Special Forces soldier before joining the Space Service. She knew how to spot weaknesses in any enemy. "Captain, look at how they're flying," Kate said, pointing at the screen. "Perfect formation, exact distances between ships, no scouts or pickets. They're flying like they're in a parade, not like they're expecting trouble." Ryan nodded slowly. "They're overconfident. They've been beating up on defenseless colonies for so long. They've forgotten how to fight a real enemy." Jake watched the alien ships move in their perfect formation. Kate was right. The Vector were flying like nothing in the galaxy could threaten them. It was exactly the kind of mistake that could be used against them. "Danny, are you recording all of this?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir." "Getting full scans of their ships, weapons, and movement patterns." "Good. We need to learn everything we can." "Doctor." Foster was running constant scans of the alien ships. "Captain, I'm detecting some kind of biological components in their hulls. These ships aren't just machines. They're part living creature. What does that mean for us?" Jake asked. "It means the electromagnetic frequency weapon might work on their ships too, not just the aliens themselves." Jake felt a spark of hope. Maybe they weren't as helpless as he had thought. Suddenly, alarms began beeping on the bridge. "Captain, one of their ships is changing course," Sarah reported. "It's heading directly for us. Did they detect us?" Ryan asked. I don't think so, Kate said, studying the alien ship's movement. Look at how it's moving. No urgency, no weapons charging. I think it's just routine patrol. Jake had to make a fast decision. They could run now and avoid being detected, but they would lose this chance to study the enemy. Or they could stay and risk being discovered. We stay, Jake decided, but be ready to run if things go bad. The alien patrol ship moved closer to their position. It was smaller than the main fleet ships, but still larger than the Defiance. Strange lights pulsed along its hull, and Jake could see weapon ports that looked like they could blast his ship to pieces. It's scanning the area, Dr. Foster reported quietly. But our stealth systems are holding. The alien ship moved past them, so close that Jake could see details on its hull. The metal looked organic, like it was grown rather than built. Symbols were carved into the surface that hurt to look at directly. After what felt like hours, but was only minutes, the patrol ship moved away and rejoined the main fleet. That was too close, Ryan said, wiping sweat from his forehead. But Jake was thinking about what they had just seen. Denny, did you get readings on that patrol ship? Yes, sir. Full sensor sweep. Good. Kate, what did you notice about how it moved? Kate thought for a moment. It followed a completely predictable pattern. Straight lines, regular turns, no variation at all. If we knew their patrol routes, we could avoid them easily. Or ambush them, Ryan added. Jake nodded. The Vector were powerful, but they were also predictable. They had been winning for so long that they had become lazy and overconfident. Set course for Alpha Centauri, Jake ordered. Best possible speed. Sir, we won't get there before the Vector fleet arrives, Sarah pointed out. I know, but maybe we can get there in time to help. As the Defiance jumped to faster-than-light speed, Jake thought about what they had learned. The Vector had superior technology and overwhelming numbers. But they also had weaknesses that could be exploited. Dr. Foster came up to him with her preliminary analysis. Captain, I've been thinking about the electromagnetic frequency weapon. If we could build a larger version, maybe mounted on our ships, we might actually have a chance. How long would that take? Jake asked. With the right resources and enough help, maybe a week. Jake did the math in his head. The Vector would reach Alpha Centauri in less than 2 weeks. If Earth Command received his message and acted quickly, they might have time to prepare a defense. Start working on the weapon designs, Jake ordered. Send everything to Earth Command as soon as we drop out of faster-than-light travel. Doctor. Foster nodded and went back to her work. Ryan walked up beside Jake. Do you really think we can stop them? Jake looked at the stars streaming past on the main screen. Somewhere out there, 2 million innocent people were going about their daily lives, not knowing that death was coming for them. Children were playing. Families were having dinner. People were falling in love and making plans for the future. The Vector thought they could destroy all of that because humans were weak and inferior. They thought humans would just roll over and die like all the other species they had crushed. They were wrong. Yes, Jake said firmly. We're going to stop them, all of them. The hunt had begun, and the Vector had no idea that this time they were the ones being hunted. Governor John Matthews stood in the command center of Alpha Centauri Prime, looking at the evacuation orders on his desk. The message from Earth Command was clear. Get everyone off the planet before the Vector fleet arrived. 2 million people needed to be moved to safety in less than a week. John crumpled up the orders and threw them in the trash. Sir, you can't just ignore direct orders from Earth Command, said his assistant, a young woman named Carol Price. John turned to face her. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong and determined. Carol, how long would it take to evacuate 2 million people? With our current transport ships, at least 3 weeks, she answered quietly. And how long until the Vector get here? 5 days. John nodded. Then evacuation isn't really an option, is it? Before Carol could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the command center. Lieutenant Commander Tony Mitchell, head of the planet's defense systems, rushed up to John with urgent news. "Governor, we're getting multiple ship signatures dropping. Out of faster-than-light travel. It's the Earth Defense Fleet." John felt a wave of relief wash over him. "How many ships?" 43 ships, sir. Led by General Claire Thompson on the EDS Titan. John had heard of General Thompson. She was known as one of the toughest commanders in the Earth Defense Forces. If anyone could help them fight the Vector, it was her. "Within an hour, General." Thompson was standing in John's command center. She was a tall woman with short black hair and the kind of eyes that had seen too much war. Behind her came a group of officers, including a familiar face. "Captain Morrison," John said, recognizing. "Jake from the reports about New Denver. I'm glad you made it." Jake shook John's hand. "We brought everything we could, Governor. Ships, weapons, and most importantly, information about how to hurt these aliens." General Thompson activated a holographic display that showed the entire Alpha Centauri system. "Gentlemen, we're not running from this fight. We're going to make a stand here and now." She pointed to various locations throughout the system. The Vector expect to find defenseless civilians and maybe a few patrol ships. Instead, they're going to find the biggest trap in human history. Tony Mitchell studied the battle plans. As the chief engineer for the planet's defenses, he knew every weapon system and shield generator on Alpha Centauri Prime. "General, our planetary defenses are strong, but not strong enough to stop a fleet that size. That's why we're not fighting from the planet," General Thompson replied. "We're fighting from everywhere at once." Dr. Amanda Foster stepped forward. She had been working with Earth's top scientists to turn her discovery about vector weaknesses into actual weapons. "We've built electromagnetic pulse devices that can be mounted on our ships and fighter craft. The aliens won't know what hit them." Maria Santos, the fleet's communications specialist, showed them a new piece of technology. "We've also deployed quantum communication networks throughout the system. Every ship, every defense platform, every fighter pilot will be able to talk to each other instantly, no matter how far apart they are." John was impressed but still worried. "That's all good, but we're still outnumbered and outgunned." General Thompson smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant smile. "Governor, you're thinking like the Vector. You're thinking about big ships and big guns. That's not how humans fight." She changed the holographic display to show the asteroid belt that surrounded the Alpha Centauri system. "Tony, how long would it take to hide defense platforms throughout that asteroid field?" Tony's eyes lit up as he understood the plan. "With the engineering crews from the fleet, maybe 3 days. Do it. I want electromagnetic pulse cannons hidden behind every big rock in that belt." Jake studied the tactical display. "They'll detect the platforms eventually. Not if they're powered down and hidden properly," Maria said. "We can use the quantum communication network to activate them all at once when the Vector fleet enters the system." General Thompson continued laying out the battle plan. "The Vector will come into the system expecting easy targets. Instead, they'll find our main fleet waiting for them near the planet. While they're focused on us, the hidden platforms will hit them from behind." "What about fighters?" asked Commander Ryan Brooks, who had come with Jake from the Defiance. "That's the best part," General Thompson said. "Dr. Foster's electromagnetic weapons work even better on small fighter craft. Our pilots will be able to get in close and hit the Vector ships where they're most vulnerable." Chief Kate Sullivan had been quiet during the briefing, but now she spoke up. "General, what about ground defenses? If any Vector ships make it through, they'll try to attack the planet directly." John answered that question. "Every city on Alpha Centauri Prime has underground bunkers and hidden weapon systems. If they want to hurt our civilians, they'll have to fight for every street." "Over." The next 4 days, the entire Alpha Centauri system became a hive of activity. Engineering teams worked around the clock to install hidden defense platforms throughout the asteroid belt. Fighter pilots practiced new attack patterns designed to take advantage of the vector weaknesses. Ground defense teams prepared for the worst. Dr. Foster and her team finished building dozens of electromagnetic pulse weapons. They were mounted on ships, fighters, and defense platforms throughout the system. For the first time since the attacks began, humans had weapons that could actually hurt the vector. On the morning of the 5th day, long-range sensors detected the Vector fleet approaching the edge of the system. 12 ships, just like Captain Morrison reported. Maria announced from her communication station. Same formation, same overconfident flying pattern. General Thompson activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, all stations, this is General Thompson. Today we show these aliens what happens when you mess with humanity. Stay sharp, follow your orders, and remember what they did to New Denver. The Vector fleet moved into the Alpha Centauri system like they owned it. Their massive ships flew in perfect formation, weapons powered but not ready for immediate combat. They had done this so many times before that it had become routine. They're heading straight for the planet, Tony reported. No scouts, no advance. Guard. They're flying right into our trap. Jake watched the alien ships approach on the main display. Just like at New Denver, they think we're helpless. They're about to learn different, General Thompson said grimly. When the Vector fleet reached the halfway point between the asteroid belt and the planet, General Thompson gave the order that changed everything. All units, this is Thompson. Execute Operation Hornet's Nest. Hit them with everything we've got. The hidden defense platforms throughout the asteroid belt suddenly came online, their electromagnetic pulse cannons charging with deadly energy. At the same time, the human fleet near the planet launched every fighter they had. The Vector were caught completely by surprise. Electromagnetic pulse beams hit their ships from every direction. The aliens' superior shields, designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, were useless against the specific frequencies that shut down their nervous systems. Jake watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the largest Vector ship began to drift helplessly through space. Their command ship is dead in the water, he reported. The electromagnetic pulse knocked out their entire crew. But the battle was far from over. The smaller Vector ships were recovering quickly, and their weapons were still deadly. Energy beams lashed out from the alien fleet, destroying 2 human ships and damaging several defense platforms. All fighters, concentrate on the damaged ships, General Thompson ordered. Hit them before they can recover. Human fighter pilots dove at the alien ships like angry wasps, their small craft darting between the massive Vector vessels. The electromagnetic pulse weapons mounted on the fighters were devastating at close range, shutting down alien weapon systems and leaving the huge ships vulnerable. Commander Ryan Brooks led a squadron of fighters straight at the Vector command ship. The massive vessel was trying to restart its systems, but its crew was still recovering from the electromagnetic attack. This is for New Denver, Ryan said as he lined up his attack run. The fighters hit the command ship with everything they had. Electromagnetic pulses shut down the alien weapons, while conventional missiles tore through the now defenseless hull. The largest ship in the Vector fleet began to break apart, its organic hull splitting like a dying creature. Jake decided it was time to end this personally. Take us in close to the command ship, he ordered. I want to have a word with whoever's in charge of this massacre. The Defiance approached the dying Vector vessel. Jake led a boarding party through the damaged hull, making their way to what looked like the bridge. Inside, they found the alien commander. He was a massive creature, twice the size of a human, with 6 arms and skin like metal. But he was dying, the electromagnetic weapons having damaged his nervous system beyond repair. The alien looked at Jake with eyes full of disbelief and pain. When he spoke, his words came through a broken translation device. Impossible, the creature gasped. You are mere animals. How do you possess such rage? Such determination? Jake looked down at the dying alien without pity. You made one mistake. You hurt our families. The Vector commander's eyes went wide with understanding just before he died. Ambassador Rachel Stone walked through the halls of the Galactic Trade Consortium station, her footsteps echoing in the massive corridors. The station was unlike anything humans had ever built. It floated in empty space between star systems, a neutral meeting place for dozens of different alien species. Rachel had been Earth's ambassador to the galaxy for only 2 years, but she had never seen the station like this. Emergency lights flashed in the corridors, and alien beings rushed past her with worried expressions on their faces, tentacles or whatever they used for faces. The news of humanity's victory at Alpha Centauri had spread across the galaxy in just 3 days. Now every species in the Trade Consortium wanted to know more about these humans who had done the impossible. Ambassador Stone, called a voice behind her. Rachel turned to see Diplomat Zarbeth, a tall blue alien with 4 arms and kind eyes. The Gelinari were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and Zarbeth had become Rachel's closest friend. Among the aliens, Zarbeth, Rachel said, smiling. I take it you heard about our little fight with the Vector. Little fight? Zarbeth's translator made a sound that might have been laughter. Rachel, do you understand what you have done? No species has ever defeated a Vector fleet in open battle. Ever. Before Rachel could respond, a small floating creature approached them. It looked like a jellyfish made of light, and its voice sounded like music when it spoke. Ambassador Stone. I am Speaker Velmuth of the Mordain Collective. Our Council of Voices has requested an immediate emergency session to discuss the Vector situation. Your presence is required. Rachel nodded. Of course, lead the way. The council chamber was the largest room on the station, designed to hold representatives from over 100 different species. As Rachel entered, she was amazed to see that almost every seat was filled. She had never seen so many different kinds of aliens in one place. There were the crystal-bodied Gelinari, the floating energy beings called Mordain, the insect-like Krillex, and dozens of other species she barely recognized. All of them were staring at her as she took her seat at the human delegation table. Council leader Thrushmar, a massive creature that looked like a walking tree, called the session to order. We are here to discuss the recent events at the human colony of Alpha Centauri Prime. Ambassador Stone, please tell us exactly what happened. Rachel stood up and activated a holographic display showing the battle. 3 weeks ago, the Vector attacked our colony at New Denver. They killed 47,000 innocent people for no reason except that they thought humans were weak. Murmurs filled the chamber. Many of the aliens were translating for species that didn't use the common galactic language. 5 days ago, they attacked Alpha Centauri Prime, expecting to kill 2 million more humans. Instead, they found our defense fleet waiting for them. We destroyed 11 of their 12 ships. Only one escaped. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens were standing up, shouting in languages Rachel didn't understand, and arguing with each other. Council leader Thrushmar had to bang his staff 3 times to restore order. Impossible, declared Representative Corahan of the Krillex. Hive, the Vector have superior technology. Their ships are invincible. How could a species that only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago defeat them? Rachel smiled. Because we learned something important. The Vector have been winning for so long that they forgot how to fight an enemy that fights back. She changed the holographic display to show Dr. Foster's research about vector biology. We discovered that their nervous systems are vulnerable to electromagnetic frequencies. We built weapons specifically designed to exploit that weakness. An alien that looked like a giant spider raised one of its 8 legs. Ambassador Stone, if these electromagnetic weapons are so effective, why has no other species discovered? This weakness? Because no other species has survived long enough to study vector biology, Rachel answered. They usually destroy entire civilizations before anyone can learn anything useful. Diplomat Zarbeth stood up, her forearms trembling with emotion. Ambassador Stone speaks the truth. The vector destroyed our singing cities on Gelinara Prime 200 years ago. 3 billion of my people died in a single day. We never had a chance to fight back. Other aliens began standing up and sharing their own stories. The floating Mordain told of entire star systems being drained of energy. The insect-like Krelix described how the vector had enslaved their worker castes for decades. Species after species shared tales of vector cruelty and destruction. Rachel listened to the stories with growing horror. She had known the vector were bad, but she hadn't realized the scope of their evil across the galaxy. How long has this been going on? She asked. Council leader Threshmer's ancient voice was filled with sadness. The vector have been terrorizing the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Entire civilizations have been wiped out. Billions of beings have died. We had given up hope that anyone could stop them. Until now, said a new voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Captain Lisa Warren entering the chamber. Lisa was the commander of the new human fleet that had been assembled after the Alpha Centauri victory. Behind her came several other human officers, including some faces Rachel recognized from the battle reports. Captain Warren, Rachel said, surprised. What are you doing here? Lisa walked up to the speaking platform. Ambassador, I'm here to make an offer to the Galactic Trade Consortium. Humanity is declaring war on the Vector Empire. We're going to hunt down every one of their fleets and destroy them. Any species that wants to join us is welcome. The chamber fell completely silent. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. Then Diplomat Zarbeth stood up. The Gelinari Collective will join this alliance. Our people demand justice for the destruction of our singing cities. Speaker Velmoth's musical voice filled the chamber. The Mordain offer our energy manipulation technology to the human fleet. One by one, other species began standing and pledging their support. The Krelix offered their manufacturing capabilities. The tree-like Yolith promised their biological sciences. Even species that Rachel had never heard of were volunteering to help. Within an hour, representatives from 37 different species had joined what was being called the Liberation Alliance. But not everyone was ready to fight. Representative Korahan of the Krelix shook his insect head. This is madness. The Vector Empire is vast. They have hundreds of fleets, thousands of ships. Even with all our species combined, we cannot match their numbers. Captain Warren smiled. Representative Korahan, you're still thinking like the Vector. You think this war will be won by whoever has the biggest ships and the most weapons. She activated her own holographic display, showing intelligence reports that human scouts had gathered over the past few weeks. We've been tracking Vector movements across the galaxy. They have massive fleets, yes, but they're spread out across hundreds of star systems. They never expect coordinated resistance. Intelligence Officer Sean Parker stepped forward. He was a quiet man who had spent years studying alien cultures and military tactics. We've identified 17 major Vector strongholds. If we can coordinate simultaneous attacks on all of them, we can cripple their command structure. Rachel looked at the battle plans with amazement. In just 3 weeks, humanity had gone from being victims of genocide to leading a galaxy-wide resistance movement. There's something else, Sean continued, his voice becoming more serious. During our intelligence gathering, we found something disturbing in the Vector archives. They weren't always conquerors. 1,000 years ago, they were victims themselves. He brought up ancient records that human codebreakers had translated. Something called the Devourers corrupted the Vector, turned them into weapons against organic life. The Devourers are still out there, somewhere in the galaxy's core. Council leader Thrushmer leaned forward, his tree-like face showing concern. The Devourers are ancient legend. Stories our oldest texts speak of as the enemies of all living things. Not legends, Sean said grimly. Very real and very dangerous. Our victory over the Vector has probably gotten their attention. Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. Just when humanity had found a way to defeat one enemy, they had discovered an even greater threat. But as she looked around the chamber at the faces of dozens of different species, all united in their determination to fight for freedom, she felt hope as well. The Vector had made the mistake of attacking humanity when humans were alone and defenseless. Now humanity had friends, allies, and a common cause. Whatever the Devourers were, they would find that their victims had become something they never expected. A galaxy united in the refusal to give up. The real war was about to begin. But this time, humanity wouldn't be fighting alone. Deep in the center of the galaxy, something that had slept for 1,000 years began to wake up. The machines called the Devourers had been watching the destruction of Vector fleets across the galaxy, and they were not pleased. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the EDS Liberation. 6 months had passed since the battle at Alpha Centauri, and the galaxy-wide war against the Vector had been going better than anyone expected. 17 major Vector strongholds had been destroyed, and millions of enslaved beings had been freed. But now everything was about to change. "Admiral, we're getting emergency signals from across the galaxy," reported Communications Officer Maria Santos. "Something big is happening at the galactic core." Jake looked at the main display, where a map of the galaxy showed flashing red. Warnings from dozens of different locations. What kind of signals? Dr. Amanda Foster, now the Chief Science Officer for the entire Liberation Alliance, rushed onto the bridge with urgent data. "Admiral, massive energy readings are coming from the Galactic Center. Whatever's down there just woke up and it's angry." Before Jake could respond, the main screen filled with an image that made everyone on the bridge step back in fear. A ship was approaching their position, but it wasn't like any ship they had ever seen. It was perfectly geometric, made of black metal that seemed to absorb light itself. "That's not Vector technology," whispered Captain Lisa Warren, who was serving as Jake's second in command. "No," Dr. Foster said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's Devourer technology. The real enemy has finally shown itself." The alien ship transmitted a message in perfect human language, but the voice was cold and mechanical, without any emotion or life. "Organic species of this galaxy, you have interfered with our plans for the final cleansing. The Vector were our instruments for removing inferior life forms. Since you have destroyed our tools, we will complete the cleansing ourselves. Prepare for extinction." Admiral Jake felt his blood turn cold. The Devourers weren't just another enemy to fight. They were the ultimate threat to all organic life in the galaxy. "Get me a connection to all Liberation Alliance fleets," Jake ordered. "Emergency priority." Within minutes, the holographic display showed the faces of commanders from dozens of different species. General Claire Thompson represented the human forces, while diplomat Zarbeth spoke for the Gelanari, and dozens of other alien leaders joined the emergency conference. "The Devourers are real," Jake announced without ceremony. "And they're coming. For all of us." Commander Velmoth of the Mordain spoke in his musical voice. "Our ancient records speak of the Devourers. They are machines that seek to destroy all organic life. They have been doing this for millions of years, moving from galaxy to galaxy. How do we fight something like that?" asked General Thompson. Dr. Foster brought up her analysis of the Devourer ship they had encountered. "Their technology is beyond anything we've seen. Energy shields that can absorb entire star systems, weapons that can destroy planets, and worst of all, they learn and adapt to everything we throw at them." Intelligence Officer Sean Parker had been studying the ancient archives they had captured from Vector strongholds. There might be a way. According to these records, the Devourers have one weakness. They're machines, which means they think in logical, predictable patterns. So? Asked Captain Warren. So they can't understand or adapt to truly chaotic creative thinking, the kind of thinking that only organic minds can produce. Jake studied the battle reports coming in from across the galaxy. Devourer fleets were emerging from the galactic core, and they were destroying everything in their path. Unlike the Vector, who at least took prisoners and slaves, the Devourers simply annihilated all organic life they encountered. How long do we have? Jake asked. Maria Santos was monitoring signals from across the galaxy. Based on their current speed and direction, the main Devourer fleet will reach the Outer Rim colonies in 2 weeks. 2 weeks to save not just humanity, but every living thing in the galaxy. All ships, set course for the galactic core, Jake ordered. We're going to end this where it started. The journey to the center of the galaxy took 8 days. As the Liberation Alliance fleet traveled deeper into space, they began to see the true scope of the Devourer threat. Entire star systems had been stripped of all planets. Suns had been drained of their energy until they collapsed into dead husks. "My God," whispered Captain Warren as they passed through what had once been a thriving solar system. "They're not just destroying life. They're destroying the very possibility of life." Dr. Foster was running constant scans as they traveled. The Devourers aren't just machines. They're a machine intelligence that has been growing and learning for millions of years. Every galaxy they've destroyed has made them smarter and more dangerous. When the Liberation Alliance fleet finally reached the galactic core, they found something that defied description. A massive structure, larger than most planets, floated in space surrounded by thousands of Devourer ships. The structure pulsed with dark energy, and Jake could feel its malevolent presence even through the ship's hull. "That's their central intelligence," Sean Parker reported. "Everything we've learned suggests that if we can destroy that, we can stop the entire Devourer network." "And how exactly do we destroy something that big?" asked General Thompson. Dr. Foster had been working on the problem during their journey. "We can't destroy it with conventional weapons. But remember what Sean said about the Devourer's weakness. They can't adapt to truly chaotic thinking." She brought up a complex plan. "On the main display, we upload a virus into their central intelligence. Not a computer virus, but something based on human neural patterns. Pure creativity, imagination, and hope. Things that machines can never truly understand." Commander Ryan Brooks, who had been promoted to lead one of the human battle groups, studied the plan. "That means someone has to get close enough to physically connect to their central computer." "A suicide mission," Jake said quietly. "Not necessarily," Dr. Foster replied. "If we can coordinate all our fleets to attack at once, we might be able to create enough chaos to get a small team through their defenses." Jake looked around at the faces of his officers and allies. These beings from dozens of different worlds had come together to fight for something bigger than themselves. They were fighting for the right of organic life to exist in the universe. "Do it," Jake decided. "Prepare the virus and coordinate the attack." The final battle began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Thousands of ships from the Liberation Alliance attacked the Devourer fleet from every direction. The ancient machines responded with weapons that tore through space itself, destroying entire squadrons with single shots. But the organic allies had something the Devourers couldn't predict: the willingness to sacrifice themselves for others. Gelinary ships used their crystal hulls to absorb Devourer energy weapons, protecting smaller human fighters. Mordane energy beings merged with human pilots, allowing them to fly through attacks that should have been impossible to survive. In the chaos of battle, Jake led a small team toward the central intelligence structure. Commander Brooks flew escort in a fighter squadron, while Dr. Foster worked frantically to prepare the neural virus that would hopefully shut down the Devourer network. "Almost there," Jake announced as their ship approached the massive structure. "Foster, is the virus ready?" "Ready, Admiral. But I need a direct connection to their central processor." The team fought their way through the structure's defenses, past mechanical guardians that moved like liquid metal. Finally, they reached the core chamber, where a massive computer system pulsed with the collected intelligence of millions of years. Dr. Foster connected her device to the alien computer. "Uploading now. The virus contains human neural patterns, creativity algorithms, and something the machines will never understand." "What's that?" Jake asked. "Hope," Amanda replied. "Pure, unreasonable human hope." The virus spread through the Devourer network like wildfire. Across the galaxy, machine ships began shutting down as their logical minds tried to process concepts they couldn't understand. How could organic beings continue fighting when victory was impossible? How could they sacrifice themselves for others with no benefit to themselves? How could they maintain hope in the face of certain death? The questions crashed through the Devourer network, causing cascading failures throughout their systems. One by one, the ancient machines went silent. In the core chamber, the massive computer system made a sound like screaming metal as it tried to process the virus. Lights flickered and died as millions of years of accumulated knowledge was overwritten by something the machines had never encountered: the refusal to give up. Jake and his teeped just as the central intelligence structure began to collapse. Across the galaxy, Devourer ships went dark and drifted helplessly through space. The galaxy was free. Months later, Jake stood in a garden on Earth, watching children from a dozen different species play together under the sun. The threat that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years was gone, destroyed not by superior weapons or technology, but by the simple refusal to surrender. The Devourers had made the same mistake as the Vector. They had underestimated the power of organic beings working together, fighting not just for themselves, but for each other.